On the morning of August 4th, Air India Flight AI2379 was well into its journey from Phuket to Delhi. The Airbus A320 Neo was cruising calmly at 36,000 feet. Most of the 137 passengers on board were asleep. Then, without warning, the aircraft plunged. Over the course of a terrifying few seconds, the plane dropped 300 feet. Anyone not buckled in, including several crew members, was violently thrown upward. The damage inside the cabin was severe. Passengers suffered fractured skulls, separated shoulders, and severe neck injuries. The impact was strong enough to shatter the solid plastic ceiling panels above the aisles. When the story broke, the public and the media quickly settled on an explanation. August is the peak of the monsoon season, known for towering storm clouds that can reach 50,000 feet, creating massive pockets of extreme, clear air turbulence. This diagram of an airplane wing shows how the weather theory works. Normally, air cuts cleanly across the wing to create upward lift. But if a plane hits a sudden, massive downdraft, the angle of the air hitting the wing changes in milliseconds. When that angle shifts, the lift simply evaporates, and the heavy aircraft instantly sinks in the sky. It is a terrifying scenario, and it provided a neat, understandable narrative for why AI2379 suddenly dropped out of the sky. Everyone accepted it. The problem is, it completely masked what actually happened. Weeks after the passengers were sent to the hospital, leaked internal flight safety reports surfaced, and they painted a completely different picture of the cockpit. The flight data proved that weather had absolutely nothing to do with this plunge. There was no clear air turbulence, there was no monsoon downdraft. That 300-foot drop was entirely an internal, man-made catastrophe. To understand how it happened, we have to look at a catastrophic blend of mechanical failure and human panic. Let's go inside the cockpit right before the drop. The captain is actually standing out of his seat, discussing the plane's air conditioning system. The first officer is flying the plane. Suddenly, the electronic monitoring screens light up with warnings. The autopilot disengages. The system registers a fault in the plane's elevators, the mechanical flaps on the tail that control whether the nose points up or down. The fault forced the jet's nose to pitch violently upward, rapidly bleeding airspeed and triggering a stall warning. The first officer aggressively pushed the nose back down, but pushed so hard it triggered a negative G excursion, exceeding the aircraft's structural limit. The plane was forced downward faster than gravity alone could pull it. It literally pulled the floor out from beneath the passengers. The unbuckled passengers didn't fly upward. They stayed exactly where they were in midair, while the violent anti-stall maneuver brought the solid ceiling crashing down onto their heads. Inside the cockpit, the captain was now weightless. He had to physically pull himself through the zero-gravity environment, fighting his way diagonally back to his seat to grab the controls and pull the aircraft out of the dive. This schematic illustrates the underlying mechanical crisis they were fighting. Engineering logs recorded concurrent low-pressure warnings in the aircraft's green, blue, and yellow hydraulic systems, the pressurized fluids required to actually move the heavy flight controls. The Airbus A320 relies on 3 independent hydraulic systems, specifically to back each other up. Losing pressure across all 3 simultaneously is incredibly rare. The crew was now flying a heavily compromised machine. The captain managed to stabilize the descent. He declared a medical emergency, coordinated ambulances with air traffic control, and safely landed the plane in New Delhi. Following any serious incident of this nature, both pilots are immediately subjected to a mandatory psychoactive substance screening. The first officer's tests came back clear. The captain, however, failed 2 consecutive tests. He tested positive for marijuana. This creates a disturbing picture for investigators. The pilot in command was physically out of position when the mechanical emergency began, and post-flight tests suggest he was operating under the influence of a psychoactive substance while attempting to recover the aircraft. The incident on AI2379 highlights a deeper issue than simple passenger behavior. While seatbelts were the only thing that prevented more severe injuries in the cabin, the core of the failure was located in the cockpit. Modern aircraft are built with deep layers of mechanical redundancy. But when those systems fail, the absolute final safety net keeping hundreds of people alive in the sky is the immediate